Yay! Woo! Yeah! Y'all happy? Spider-Man is back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know why any of you were worried even remotely for a second. But don't worry, I'm here to rail the film like a freight train. First of all, these are my opinions.
This is only your opinion.
But that's important that you know this is my genuine opinion, not just clickbait to add views. Like this guy.
Okay, so let me get one thing out of the way straight away. Spider-Man Homecoming doesn't suck. It's not perfect.
See, now that's some bullshit.
If you haven't already, please check out my channel and last Spider-Man video. I have many more videos like this and appreciate any and all support. Alright, let's do this shit. My biggest issue is that I have never seen this same Spider-Man twice. Out of all the MCU characters, Peter changes the most frequently. If you look at Captain America's trilogy, the one thing that is consistent is Steve. In every film, he is the same character. In war, espionage, and blockbuster genres, the character is identical, making his connection to these stories even more strong. Watching Cap grow over the last 10 years has been nothing short of amazing, because the writing was so consistent. You can argue this for any other Marvel hero as well, except for Spider-Man. Peter's goals, character, and borderline personality change with each film. Without any context, it's nearly impossible to draw connections from each version of this Spider-Man. They all seem very different from one another. There have only been a couple of directors for this Spider-Man incarnation, and the ones that barely use him seem to do a better job with less screen time. Here is a little track record of Peter's motivations. Civil War. Peter doesn't want to be an Avenger. He wants to focus on school and protecting his neighborhood. That's pretty cool. Homecoming. He only wants to be an Avenger and to stop going to school or to college. Okay, that's pretty different. In Far From Home, he wants to get with MJ, not be a superhero or Avenger, and relax on his field trip. Dude, what the hell does this guy even want?
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
This is such the roller coaster of goals and traits, and his perspectives change so fluidly. I think I may know why. The traditional Peter Parker, at his core, feels responsible for his uncle's death. But since the studios didn't want to recreate this scene, we are left with a Peter that doesn't have a moral foundation. They are trying to establish Tony Stark as this uncle figure, but it doesn't carry the same weight. Tony's sacrifice, although noble, doesn't carry the same traumatization of Uncle Ben's death. I know people didn't want to see this event again, which I find funny because of the amount of times I've seen Batman's parents die. While I understand why they didn't show Uncle Ben's death, it does take away something from the character, and it honestly feels like Uncle Ben doesn't exist in this universe. While there are 2 references to him throughout the movies, it doesn't seem to bother Peter all that much. This iteration of Peter is missing one of his core values: responsibility. In every iteration of the character, there is a theme of responsibility. At this point, as much as it pains me to say this, I think the Amazing Spider-Man films were a much more faithful adaptation. Ugh. That is my overall issue with the MCU Spider-Man. He's not a character I understand or enjoy. I can't relate to this Spider-Man in any shape or form. My last video covered it pretty well, but I'll summarize. This Spider-Man doesn't have his own identity. He is a shadow of Iron Man, and because of that, he has lost that part that I think everyone relates to.
When I originally planned him, I wanted him to have problems. The one thing that my publisher felt no hero should have. But I think the average reader can empathize with him and could say, gee, yeah, that happened to me. Sure, I know how he feels. You know, he never had enough money, had trouble with girls. I tried to make him as human as possible.
I haven't seen that version of Peter Parker or Spider-Man since Civil War, and the character has changed a lot since then. I don't think it's Tom Holland's fault, and I don't think it's the director's fault. I really feel like it's just a bad script. It just feels like a really bad rough draft, and while I would love to pull it apart right now, I think we should focus on what matters in this story: the characters. Most of my issues with the character remain. He gets the girl, no problem. He's still super lucky and unrelatable, and never suffers from any real consequences. Peter Parker in this film is an idiot. Most of the decisions he makes are moronic. Even if you like the film, you probably still agree with me to a certain extent. His life is just simple. He was lucky enough to be bitten by a super spider, has no financial issues, no loved ones at stake, and is completely sponsored by Stark Industries. In this film, we see an extremely passive hero who doesn't want to save the day, but spend the time with the people he cares about, which is similar to Spider-Man's MO, but instead of making any personal sacrifices, he just gets guilt-tripped into doing it by Nick Fury. This character doesn't want to be the hero anymore, which is especially weird since that's all he wanted before.
Can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
But I'm ready for more than that now.
No, you're not.
Peter is hesitant to live up to the mantle of Iron Man, and while this is a good story arc, it doesn't ultimately go anywhere. As Peter is gifted with this newfound power, there should come a newfound responsibility. It never comes.
Because I have too much of a responsibility. Oh my god, thank you so much.
What are those? Are those the
Edith glasses, yeah.
they were just on the floor?
I don't think the creators of this film understood what they were saying with this scene. What I see is a character that doesn't care about Tony and has no concept of responsibility, giving the glasses to someone he barely knew. Tony must have meant nothing for you to give up the glasses so easily. It seems like he does this just to be with MJ quicker. And MJ is not the strongest point of the film either. MJ as a character is fine. A little bleak, but Peter's connection with her is boring at best. The film just starts with this romance. Literally, it's his first line in the film.
I really like MJ, man, okay?
But before that, there was no hint of a connection or any form of chemistry. It seemed to come out of thin air. I'd imagine they'd share more screen time before they started building this connection. We are thrown into this relationship without any other significance than the fact it helps aid the plot. I thought it was underdeveloped and very rushed. Nick Fury pisses me off even more than Peter just because his character at one point was really good, and they just kind of ruined it over the last couple films. Basically, the plot of this film is that Nick Fury kidnaps a high school trip so he can get Spider-Man to help him fight some interdimensional demons. I feel like there is a much better way to find a way to get Spider-Man to help. Not that you even need Spider-Man, but whatever, I'll get back to that in a moment. He doesn't do a background check on Mysterio, which would be super easy since Mysterio uses the same name as his real name. Nick Fury asked the least qualified and not legal adult Avenger for help fighting interdimensional beings. I don't quite grasp why Nick Fury would want Spider-Man's help, given that Quentin Beck single-handedly takes care of every elemental without any help. Even when Peter's involved in the fight, he doesn't seem to do much. It seems odd that Quentin Beck would need any assistance, and Fury should know that. It was probably Mysterio's idea to have Peter tag along, which one, was dumb, and two, should be a red flag. Fury not only reveals Peter's identity to his own S.H.I.E.L.D. crew, but eventually to all of Mysterio's crew, which leads to this.
Is Peter Parker? What the?
So that's really Nick Fury's fault, to be honest. He is also equally as inconsistent as a character. Fury lectures Peter that he isn't ready.
It's clear to me that you were not ready for this.
He tells Peter that even though Peter wanted no part in this mission, then he gives him a lecture after he succeeds in that mission.
You got gifts, Parker. But you didn't want to be here.
What do you want from him, Fury? I honestly don't understand. I'd be confused and pissed if I was Peter. This is perhaps the laziest writing in the film. They just had Nick Fury be a Skrull, so if he did anything out of character, they could go like, oh, he was a Skrull. But Skrulls act off the brain patterns of those they copy, so this is BS. I feel like they realized halfway through that, oh yeah, putting Nick Fury in this movie is a dumb idea. Tony Stark may be the stupidest person in this movie, and he's not even freaking alive. This film is trying to tell me that the man that gave up making weapons because they got in the wrong hands makes the most powerful weapon and gives it to a teenager. Did I get that right? This is the same guy who had protocols and contingencies for Spider-Man's taser webs in his former suit. Am I getting that right? Now you have given him a device where he can kill anyone from anywhere in the world. Isn't that what Captain America tried to stop? He didn't give this weapon to anybody else. I don't know, the President of the United States, Rhodes, Captain America, or any qualified Avenger. He stole a man's technologies without knowing. I find this scene a bit weird to retcon. Mysterio's motivations are driven by his stolen project, also known as BARF. He claims Tony used the projection technology and renamed it BARF. But when Tony refers to the design of the augmented reality program, it seems he was developing something more. Tony refers to it as a project that he never got off the ground. He used it as an example to inspire students at MIT. Was he just lying? It seems like a very bold lie to claim that you pioneered a technology that never got funded when your company both approved and funded it. Also, I'm pretty sure the program was designed to also hijack the hippocampus to enter memories, so it's more than just a hologram.
An extremely costly method of hijacking the hippocampus to clear traumatic memories.
Meaning that Beck's projections is only part of the technology, which also means that Tony can call it whatever he wants. But also, this was probably more of a joke, but I honestly can't tell what's supposed to be funny and what's just bad writing. It's a terrible script. Now, this is where the movie went too far. Around last year, an amazing masterpiece was released. Insomniac's Spider-Man for the PS4 is a beautiful reinvention of the character. This is how you do Spider-Man. Creating a character for the modern times with those fundamental characteristics we all grew up loving. The game received high praise, which is why I'm confused no one is upset that the movie took so many elements from this game.
It's funny you should say that, because I was looking through some old photos and it looks very, similar.
Well, I gotta get back to work.
You're trash, Brock.
So here are some of the things that it ripped off. Number 1, the spider. I hate this costume, and all these small tweaks are directly ripped off from much cooler designs anyways, but putting them all together, it just looks ugly. Nothing matches. It's just an ugly mesh of MCU, Superior Spider-Man, and the Insomniac suit. It looks like shit. What's funny is I love their original suit, but they had to sell toys. The next thing they stole was Aunt May's character development. In the Insomniac game, Aunt May runs a homeless shelter, which she has done in the comics before, so it was inspired. It just seems odd that as soon as this game does it, that the movie follows suit. It didn't seem like they were going in that direction before, and they didn't know how to develop Aunt May's character, so they just threw this in because the game did it. I thought it was kind of tacky. Peter takes a selfie like he does in the game, which if it was just this one single concept, I'd say it's okay, but because of all the other things, it's not a nod, it's just theft at this point.
Who does he think he is? Spider Cop?
Throughout the video game, you will hear one J. Jonah Jameson rant about his frustrations with the web slinger. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, J. Jonah Jameson never really had his own talk show in the comics. I know he became a news anchor at one point, after he resigned as mayor, but that's about it. At this point, I'm not even mad. I just find it funny. I feel as if John Watts and the writers all sat down and played this video game and then stole elements from it, as opposed to reading comics or the other movies or even their own movie. All around, this film doesn't add anything to the MCU or to Spidey as a character. It shows he has a spider sense, kinda, but that was already established in Civil War. So basically nothing. I'm almost mad that Sony didn't take back the rights. This Spidey already seems like it has run out of steam. Having to put Spider-Man in another country doesn't add anything and kind of feels like you don't have anything better to do with him. There are some good elements to the movie. Peter's motivations are more of the reluctant hero, however, the script doesn't do him any favors towards that. Seeing this direction gives me hope that maybe someday we'll have a good Spider-Man flick, but I'm not exactly holding my breath. He also slightly uses his own tech while he's on the plane in a clever way, but ultimately needed a private jet with a 3D printer to save the day. Mysterio was truly amazing. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance was outstanding, along with the costume and fight sequences. That fight sequence is probably the best thing I've seen in a Spider-Man film in some years. I really wish the rest of the film was as good as this one scene. So, many people have been telling me that this is the new version of Spider-Man, a modern take, if you will. Which I say, okay, fair enough. But you have to ask yourself, do you like a character that almost kills all of his friends on every field trip? Gives the villain a weapon of mass destruction without knowing that person for more than a week.
I'd like to transfer your control over to Quentin Beck.
Do you enjoy the bravery of a hero that can just call his billion-dollar friend whenever he's in any real danger and be flown out of there in spectacular fashion. If you like that kind of hero, then I guess we just have different tastes in superheroes. Maybe this Spider-Man isn't my cup of tea. I imagine this happens to all nerds. A certain franchise will take their beloved characters in a new direction for new audiences. I believe these films are made for children, which is fine. I'm just not a part of that demographic anymore. While I am bummed, I already have the solution. I have to hit the comics, where I can read about the true, genuine article, with no substitutes. Thank you for watching Unpopular Opinion. Please check out my first video if you haven't already, and a subscribe would really help me out. Thanks so much. Have a good one.